It's happened once again. We finally have practice footage to talk about with Duke basketball over the summer. We've got the scrimmage highlights to break down on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils.
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man, to Locked On Blue Devils with J.J. Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. So great to have you here with us on Monday, June 24th, 2024. Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop for everything going on in the life of Duke athletics. We've got a lot of Duke basketball to talk about on today's show, as at the end of the week last week, Duke basketball released some highlights from a couple of 5-on-5 practice scrimmage settings that we're going to be able to break down here on today's show, as we've done over the previous summers. I took the opportunity over the weekend to go back and total up the points that were scored inside the scrimmage settings, and we'll break those down for you here on today's show with our good pal Kevin Connelly, who's the site expert from Durham. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free, wherever it is that you get your podcast. Also, make sure that you check us out on YouTube to watch the show each and every day. Like these videos, hit the subscribe button to our channel. On X, you can follow me there at _JJ_Jackson_, and our show is on X as well at LO_Blue Devils. So once again, Kevin Connelly is here with us on today's show. Really excited to bring him onto today's program. Kevin, hope you're doing very well today. And a little inside baseball over the weekend, I got the chance to meet Kevin in person for the first time up in New York City. So good to see you once again virtually, Kevin, as we've been doing for a number of different years, but really fun to see you in person as well.
Yeah, it was a fun weekend. Glad you can make it up here to New York, JJ. Unfortunately, your Braves got the better of my Yankees, but it's still late June. We still got a lot of baseball left to be played.
All right, well, we've got a lot to talk about here in the basketball sense with the Duke basketball team. It's time to overreact, if you will, Kevin. Before we get into the overacting itself, how awesome has it been over these last few years to get the clips like we're talking about here today, like we did this past season, where we get to actually see these guys going to work in the practice setting?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of teams, at least from my knowledge, that puts out videos like this in the offseason. I get a couple of teams will put out a video here and there of someone making a three or a dunk or a block, etc. But Duke really goes all out. I mean, we saw earlier in the week when after the first day of workouts, the 20-second or so individual highlight package of players going through individual workouts, and then obviously at the end of the week they finally released the first full team scrimmage on Friday afternoon. I think they released it or Friday night. But yeah, I mean, it was awesome to see, and it just, even though it's only a couple of minutes, it gives you that little bit of taste of Duke basketball that Duke fans are clamoring for here in the summer months.
Yeah, and this is going to be overreactions that we do over the next few days. And knowing Duke basketball over the course of the summer, they're probably going to give us another one as well. I was looking back through the feed from last offseason, and there were 3 or 4 of these things that Duke was able to put out, some with referees involved even to kind of get the teams ready for what that setting would look like. These videos have a whole lot of makes in them, but it's not perfect. There are a couple of missed shots here and there. There's a couple of really nice defensive plays as well. But I think that's also something that we love, is that it's not like this true highlight per se, right? Because there are some negative plays here and there that could be turned into positive defensive plays as well. It's not just a shot-making masterpiece, I should say, is what these are.
Yeah, it's a scrimmage. They show you both ends of the floor. Things guys do well, things guys don't do well. And I think that really encapsulates everything that the team has put out, because when you look at this, it's still June, right? Yes, we're going to overreact because that's what everyone tends to do, whether you're fans or in the media or et cetera, et cetera. You're going to overreact to these things because it's the first time you've seen this collection of players playing a game for the first time ever. So yeah, there are going to be those overreactions, and it is a video, so there are things that are edited and things that didn't make the cut and things that make the cut. But all in all, I think it was a really solid video that the team put out.
All right, so 6 minutes and 12 seconds. That's 372 seconds worth of footage that we were given from Duke basketball. Of the 372 seconds worth of footage, I went through and totaled up the numbers. Cooper Flagg led the way with 15 points. Caleb Foster and Tyrese Proctor both had 11. Knueppel had 10. Sion James had 8. Common Maluach had 6. Malik Brown had 4. Pat Ngongba had 4. And Isaiah Evans had 4. So hearing those numbers, does that sort of relate to what you saw yourself in terms of the big takeaway? People had takeaways without truly knowing the numbers of points that were scored. Who stood out to you, I guess, is a better way for me to ask this question, Kevin.
Well, I think number one is Cooper Flagg, just because that's, of all the additions that this team has made, even with the 2 returners, everyone wants to see Cooper Flagg. We've talked about it ad nauseum. He's going to be, in all likelihood, the number 1 pick in the 2025 NBA draft. Everybody wants to see Cooper Flagg. So I think he stood out off the bat, and how he performed, some of the isolation plays that he had, I think he stood out off the bat right away. Aside from him, my biggest takeaway was Sion James. And man, does it look like this kid is going to be a big time and important player for this Duke team, just with the pure physical nature he brings on the basketball court. I mean, going right at a 7'2" Common Maluach, finishing through contact against him, the defensive plays that he's made inside and outside. I think outside of Cooper Flagg, I was most impressed with Sion James, and I think he was probably the player I was most excited about after looking into his film at Tulane and a deeper dive into the stats and what he can do around this roster makeup. And I think I only got more excited watching him in this 6-minute scrimmage.
Yeah, you're not the only one that felt that way as well. True disruptor on both ends of the floor. He made a mid-range jump shot or 2, attacked the rim aggressively, set up a couple of lob opportunities for the big fellas on the interior as well. There was a nice kind of putback tap that Sion James had for a bucket as well. So really, really impressive stuff with what he was able to do. Again, totaling up to 8 points, but that does not include the deflections and steals, blocked shots even that he had. He was able to do a whole lot more of that. All right, let's talk a little bit more about some of these standout performances that we saw from Duke basketball, and we'll do that after we sit here and take our first break of today's show. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. That's right, we're talking about our friends over at FanDuel, as after tonight's Game 7 in the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, we're not going to have any more playoffs. We love sports, and just because the playoffs are over, they don't stop. We get to keep it going with things like Major League Baseball. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every single day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel/LockedOn to get started and making the most out of your summer. FanDuel is the official sportsbook partner of Major League Baseball. Once again, head over to FanDuel.com/LockedOn and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball and a proud sponsor of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. We'll keep going here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. I'm JJ Jackson, joined today by my pal Kevin Connelly, the site expert from Durham. All right, we talked about Sion. You mentioned briefly Cooper Flagg. The internet is now getting a hold of Cooper Flagg. At first, they had the 20-second highlight clip that Duke was able to put together that did not feature any of these plays in the scrimmage, so to speak. So 20 seconds of non-scrimmage footage. And now folks have started to put together the montage of Cooper Flagg plays that he had in the scrimmage. What did you see, Kevin?
I saw what everyone expected. And I saw a guy who is very confident in his abilities. I think even when you look at his mannerisms on and off the court and some of the other social media photos, he carries himself with a ton of confidence. He knows he's good. He knows he can get a bucket just about whenever he wants. And you saw some of that in this scrimmage highlight as well. A couple of plays where he'd go off the dribble and pull up and really have his defender almost in a blender. And he is that guy. He's going to be that guy for this team. And again, it is late June. There's still a lot more to go. He's in his first collegiate inter-squad scrimmage, so it's not like we're comparing him to a February game against North Carolina. But yeah, I don't know how you could watch that scrimmage and not be impressed from what you saw with Cooper Flagg.
Yeah, 15 points, included 3 3-point jump shots, 2 dunks, and then kind of a runner off the glass driving down the right side of the lane. There was, in the scrimmage video, I thought this was interesting, Kevin, a single replay, right? For everything else, it was kind of uncut, and then there was a single replay of a play that had just happened featuring another angle, and that was when Cooper Flagg got the basketball kind of on the left side of the wing near the left elbow, hesitation, dribble to get past Common, and finishes with the dunk and a pretty emphatic yell. So deserving, I think, of a replay and another angle, but that's something we hadn't really seen in these scrimmage footage videos before, buddy. We had a replay of an outstanding play, and of course, it was Cooper Flagg that did that.
Yeah, and you're going to see a lot of replays of Cooper Flagg this season. Believe me on that. That's not going to be the first replay you see when you're watching something involved with Duke basketball, that you're going to see another look at a play Cooper Flagg makes. But yeah, just going back to the point of even when just the way he carries himself and how much confidence he has in himself and his abilities. You look back earlier in the week when Duke put out post-practice footage, or I shouldn't say footage, post-practice question of the day when they're heading back to the locker room. And it was like, who was the best defender? And a lot of the guys said Sion James. I think a couple said Common. And then Cooper Flagg, well, it was me. I was like, so he just has that confidence in his abilities on both ends of the floor. And you're going to see it a lot more over these next several months that he's at Duke.
So good he's got a replay in the scrimmage footage. And folks, I was wise enough not to count that bucket 2 times, right? Just 15 points when you're totaling up what Flagg was able to do. And again, the 372 seconds worth of footage that we had. Speaking of making 3 3-point shots, Tyrese Proctor did that as well to total up to his 11. Caleb Foster had 11 points. Both of the Duke guards at times were playing on the same team. Also at times when watching these videos, we saw the teams kind of switch up a little bit from time to time, depending on the settings. But the only 2 players returning from last year's team each finished with 11 points. Each are going to be incredibly vital in what Duke wants to do this upcoming season. What were your thoughts on Foster and Proctor?
Thought they looked good. The one thing I was really impressed with, I forget what part of the clip it came in. I think it was in the first half of it. Tyrese Proctor, one thing he really hasn't had during his time at Duke, and I think it's just because Derek Lively wasn't really up to speed, and his game in the NBA now, we see he's a lob threat, but he wasn't really a lob threat at Duke. He has a lob threat in Common Maluach. I mean, when you got a guy that's 7'2", and yes, I think Derek was a little bit more developed than Common is in terms of Derek played a lot more basketball in his life coming to Duke than Common has, but you could see how good Common's going to be. I think it's going to only enhance the game of Tyrese Proctor having that lob threat in a player like Common Maluach, and then having the defense very much focused on Cooper Flagg. I think it's going to open up the floor a lot for Tyrese Proctor, and I think you started to see some of that in this scrimmage video. So I was impressed with Tyrese Proctor. I don't want to read too much into his game just in this 6-minute clip as compared to maybe some other guys on the team, but I just think when you look peripherally at the rest of the team and what other players were able to do and the skills that they were able to showcase in this 6-minute video, I think it's only going to enhance the floor and the ceiling for Tyrese Proctor this season.
All right, and then for Foster as well to finish with those 11 points. He's got a catch-and-shoot 3-pointer in one of these on a pass from Cooper Flagg. Foster's got a couple of floaters that we didn't see a whole lot from this past season, but certainly know that that's in his bag and in his game, so to speak. What about Caleb Foster?
Yeah, I was impressed by him too. I think he's going to give Duke another option to handle the basketball alongside Tyrese Proctor, and I think he's going to be big as a shooting guard. The 3-point numbers were really good last year, 40%, right around there. I think he's looking for another season of that as well. And to expand his game a little bit, is he a 3-year player as well? I think that's going to be a question in the minds of a lot of people going into this season. Could he? The options are limitless for college players nowadays in terms of returning, transferring. going overseas, going to the NBA. So I think there is going to be that question in the back of everybody's mind about Caleb Foster and what he could potentially do to hurt, help, whatever for his junior season. And obviously a lot of eyes are going to be on attention of his sophomore season. That's just going to be a question a little bit down the road that a lot of Duke fans are going to want to have answered.
And we're going to try to help answer it for him. We've talked a little bit about these two players in particular, the guards coming back. Again, the only two players returning from Duke from last season, in Tyrese Proctor and Caleb Foster. We talk about how aggressive they are on the offensive end of the floor. Speak to, if you will, Kevin, these guys not really known for hunting their shots so far throughout their Duke career, but I think in prior conversations we've talked about it, and John Shire's even mentioned a little bit in the offseason, a need for these guys to be a little bit more aggressive themselves on the offensive end. Do you expect them to take more shots than they have previously in their Duke careers?
I do, and especially with Tyrese Proctor, he has to get downhill more, and you can relate it to that lob threat in common Maluach with a simple pick and roll. Tyrese Proctor, there should be driving lanes for him to get to the basket, especially when you have a 7'2" guy rolling on the opposite side of the rim, and the big man's going to be drawn to go to him because if you get switched on to a guard with a 7'2" guy, well, then it's an easy 2 points. You just got to throw it up to him and let him tap it in and slam it home. So yeah, I think the shot numbers are going to rise for those two, specifically for Tyrese Proctor. And I think for him, his free throw numbers have to go up, not in the percentage of makes, but the number of attempts. That really hasn't been a strong suit for him in his first two seasons at Duke, and it has to get better this year.
Excited to see how that can come together for Tyrese Proctor and Caleb Foster, because, again, I expect them to be more aggressive this upcoming season as well. All right, we need to take one more timeout here on today's show, and then when we come back, we'll start to wrap things up here on this Monday episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. It's the formula for winning championships, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything that you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Go ahead and keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. eBay Motors, a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. We start to wrap up this episode of Locked On Blue Devils. I'm JJ Jackson, joined today by Kevin Connelly, the science expert from Ball Durham. Tell us a little bit about Ball Durham, if you will, Kevin.
Well, we got everything you could possibly want on Duke basketball news, notes, and opinions, and Duke athletics as a whole as well. So NBA draft coming up this week. Obviously, we're still reacting to this first scrimmage footage. And obviously something we didn't get into, which I know we'll get into now, some injury news already for this Duke basketball team. And that's Darren Harris, who's out for a couple of weeks now with a broken non-shooting hand. So we got everything you could possibly want over at balldurham.com on Duke basketball and Duke athletics.
Yeah, it wouldn't be Duke basketball, it feels, over the last decade plus if we didn't have a June-July injury of some form. And unfortunately, is a fractured hand, as you said, for Darren Harris, expected to make a full recovery, has already had a successful surgery. So talking about the freshmen, and let's take out the two biggest names for this Duke basketball team in Cooper Flagg and Common Maluach. We talk about Knueppel led the way with 10 points on the day for the Blue Devils in this scrimmage. And then we had the likes of Pat Ngongba scoring 4. Isaiah Evans had 4. Some of these young freshmen, what did you notice maybe in the clips that were displayed from their games?
Yeah, so you look at Knueppel, and I feel like at least something I have heard, you could see comparisons between him and TJ Power, right? Two guys who rose fast up the recruiting rankings, became 5 stars this past year, late last summer with great AAU circuits, and known as three-point shooters. Obviously, it really didn't work out with TJ Power, enters the transfer portal after 1 year. With Con, I feel like you're seeing a lot more from him In terms of his three-point shooting, I was really impressed watching him at the Jordan Brand Classic in late April. And I think he could be a really good piece to this Duke team coming off the bench. You look at Isaiah Evans. I think with Isaiah Evans, a lot of people love his fieriness and competitiveness. I do think, though, there is area for growth for him in both the physical aspect and getting stronger, and also mentally getting a little bit tougher and stronger physically and mentally for him. And for Patton Ngongba, it's tough to judge these players. Obviously, he was at the Team USA U18 team in the FIBA AmeriCup, I think it was called. Right. And the competition's not very good. And you see some players putting up gaudy numbers. He didn't have the greatest of tournaments. And remember, he's just continuing to work his way back from a foot injury that kept him out just about his entire senior high school season. So interested to see his development, because it feels like Duke is pretty set in the front court. Obviously, Common's going to play a lot. Malik Brown's going to play a lot. Mason Gillis is a guy that we haven't really talked about through this scrimmage video, and he kind of flies under the radar, but he's a front court player. So I'm interested to see how Patton Ngongba's minutes are allocated throughout this season. Then obviously Darren Harris, you get put behind the eight ball because now he's going to be out for a couple of weeks here in the summer. Again, he's expected to make a full recovery, as you said, but the timeline wasn't really provided from Duke. And I guess the one good thing is it's his non-shooting hand. So I think if you have to break a hand, not having it be your dominant hand is always a positive, but still with everybody else on the court, creating that team chemistry on the floor, and especially him as a freshman not being able to showcase that, it obviously puts him behind the eight ball. But hopefully he should be able to be back for the start of fall practice, and hopefully he can try and accelerate his development and see what he could provide on the floor this season.
No doubt about that. Outside of the top two, right, and Cooper and Common, I got to think of a good name for that duo, because those are guys that are already projected top 3 picks in the 2025 NBA draft. I've been most excited about Isaiah Evans, and I don't think that's going to change whatsoever. I'm such a big fan of his game, his size, his length. Yes, there's a need to kind of put on more strength and that sort of thing, and we've seen that over the past few seasons with freshmen coming in. But the play that we saw from Con in the scrimmage, I thought was really impressive, so much so that Sam Vecini of The Athletic, one of the top NBA draft evaluators in the media space, has already listed him as kind of a top target in the 2025 NBA draft. When that started circulating on the internet these past few days, Kevin, it caught me by surprise as well, because all of a sudden we're going to have some hype around Con, which is certainly exciting, and adding some expectations to what this freshman class could be outside of, again, those top 2, Cooper and Common.
Yeah, and you look at Con, and obviously in his high school senior season, his team expects him and needs him to score the basketball, right? But when you look at him in some of these other showcases and events, he's very willing to do the dirty stuff that you have to do to win basketball games. And obviously his three-point shooting makes him such a weapon, but he's willing to pass, he's willing to cut, he's willing to rebound, he's willing to do anything that the team needs him to do to win. And if he's able to hit three-point shots like he did in the footage of the scrimmage, he's going to demand playing time out on the floor. And he has the size. He has a good frame with his body. But yeah, it's the same thing with freshmen. You want to get a little bit stronger. You want to get a little bit quicker and a little bit faster, but certainly seems like a really good jumping off point for him here in late June.
Ready to keep this thing moving, ready to talk a little bit more about Duke basketball after we've gotten, again, 372 seconds worth of footage. And here we are, Kevin, able to talk 20-plus minutes about said scrimmage footage out there. Thank you for the time once again, man. Really want people to go check out Ball Durham. And you and I will be talking again later this week, Kevin. So really do appreciate you stopping by here today.
Thanks, JJ.
All right, that's Kevin Connelly joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Again, go check out his work over at Ball Durham. That's going to do it for our show here today. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.